Day 3 starts in West Newton, and we're going to pedal up to Pittsburgh, which is the end of our trip, right at the point Pittsburgh, mile marker 150. It's also the shortest day on our trip as far as miles go. Now, unlike Day 2, Day 3 started early, because we had to be in Pittsburgh in time for lunch at Grill 36, which is owned by Jerome Bettis, with our families that didn't go on the bike trip. So we got up pretty early and we started packing up the bikes pretty quickly, getting ready to go. We also decided to pump up our tires with this pump that the hotel, the bed and breakfast owner, was nice enough to give to us because our portable one wasn't working too well. We also went to this little drugstore to pick up some snacks because we were out of food. Between the four of us, we had like one bag of peanuts or something. And just about all of us had squeaky brakes on our bikes. After we got started on Day 3 and rode through the woods a little bit, we came to this waterfall where the water was this orange, rusty red color. It was creatively named the Red Waterfall.
Going past this little waterfall. Degradation and environmental damage.
We read the sign explaining that it was red because of acid mine drains that had been done throughout the state and drained into there. One of the places was Philadelphia.
Philadelphia figures.
Even though it could be harmful to the environment, you can't deny that the color of the waterfall kind of looked cool.
The beauty of acid mine drainage.
In fact, we thought the waterfall looked so cool, me and Dean had our picture taken from it. And then we were back on the road with only 27 miles before we got to our final destination of Pittsburgh. Well, for 3 days of riding, you have a lot of time to practice going without your hands. And by the third day, you can get pretty good at it. You learn to balance. Even learn to steer by leaning your weight a little bit. Well, the night before in West Newton, we found out that there was a historic graveyard with like Civil War veterans buried in it on Day 3, so found out what mile marker it was at, and we decided to stop there and have a look around.
There's supposed to be like 9 Civil War veterans buried here. 1844 to 1884. He was 40 years old. He was a missionary to India. At 1840, May 29th. Can't even really make out the name. James Woods.
Well, they didn't have any way of distinguishing which ones were the Civil War veterans or which ones were just normal people, but it was still kind of cool to read all of them. Just imagine what they lived like back then. here's Dean doing something that we started on the first day, where you're right in front of the other guy, grab a bunch of leaves and throw them back in his face. Just some way we entertained ourselves on the bike trip. Here we are arriving in the town of Boston, Pennsylvania, not Massachusetts. It's right near mile marker 128, which is near Dead Man's Hollow, where a group of kids in 1874 found a dead body hanging from a tree. They never found out who the body was.
We're right by Dead Man's Hollow. Why would they make the sign so bright and colorful? So happy. A group of youths came through here in 1870, what, 4? Is that what you said? 1874, found a dead body hanging from one of these trees. Never identified the body, never identified the killer. Or if the body himself was the killer. Danger, keep out. 24-hour surveillance.
This little section of trail was pretty soon after Dead Man's Hollow. You can kind of make out that sign there said, "Danger, keep out, 24-hour surveillance." But even though that, this was probably my favorite section of trail on the whole trip, our favorite part of riding. Because it was really the only hills we had, and this part's uphill. But it was still a lot of fun. I was going pretty fast, showing off, passing everybody. We had to be careful though, because it's a skinny part of the trail. Didn't want to have anyone flying back down the hill coming our direction that we couldn't see around a turn or something. Still, it was a lot of fun. Of course, what goes up must come back down. And this downhill section came right after that uphill, and it was even more fun. We were going so fast. Me and Dean were flying ahead of everyone. I was even further ahead of Dean. Dad, we could hear him yelling behind us to slow down because he didn't want us to get hit by someone coming back up the hill. But eventually we got so far ahead that we couldn't even hear that. It was just so much fun going down here. A lot of fun. We were going so fast you can even see on some of these turns that we're actually leaning the bike into the turn a little bit because we're going that fast that we have to do that. You can especially see it on this one right here. And whenever it came out at the end, we were on a paved road. A big, wide paved road. It just went right out onto a highway, basically. Well, a highway where there was no cars going at all. Basically an abandoned highway. And from then on, we were pretty much on pavement the whole way to Pittsburgh. Well, we continued down the road a little bit, following the Great Allegheny Passage signs, and we came to this big bridge, wide enough for 2 lanes of cars and the bikes. It was pretty impressive, especially, it made me start thinking about the differences, how far we've come from day one, when the bridges were made of wood, and they were only wide enough for 2 bikes to pass each other. Here we are arriving in Mckeesport, which we stop here for a little bit at mile marker 132, the 100-mile mark from Meyersdale where we started.
132, 100 miles from where we started. Only somewhere in the teens left to go. Pittsburgh. We're in Mckeesport. It's a lot different environment than where we started, huh? We are here, and we gotta get all the way out to there. It's 18 miles away. We'll be crossing over the Riverton Bridge, and the Hot Metal Bridge. That sounds nice. Here's the elevation. We started here, so it was all downhill for us. There's nothing. Oh, we right here? We're now right there. We're stopping there. That's what? That's like half an inch? We can do that in a little bit.
Here in Mckeesport, at mile marker 132, we stopped to enjoy the scenery for a little bit. It was pretty nice. We even had our picture taken next to the bench. Now, if you look closely, you'll notice that not only are my eyes not open, but my hat's not on my head, and my water bottle's not in my cup holder. Now, if you notice that, good job, because I didn't notice that, and I rode away without them. So if you see someone in Mckeesport with a pirate's hat, you know where it came from. This is the Riverton Bridge that we saw on the map in Mckeesport. It said it was 1.5 miles away. That's where we are now. About 16.5 miles left to Pittsburgh. Stop to enjoy the view for a little bit. Take a look around. The path happens to pass right by Kennywood Park, which is a great amusement park. This is the Phantom's Revenge roller coaster. We stopped to have a look at.
There's the Steel Phantom. You can see the Thunderbolt. You can see Black Widow, the new one. It's not a roller coaster, but you know. Phantom's Revenge, Steel Phantom though, that's the best one. You really need. Pretty cool.
Kennywood's also right about where I noticed that my hat and water bottle were gone, and this is several miles after we left Mckeesport.
I'm now hatless.
Well, we were riding down this road on our way to Pittsburgh when we passed one of those little signs for a historic place, so we decided to turn around and go back and have a look at it. It turned out we were riding past an old steel mill that was the site of the Homestead Strike or Homestead Massacre.
Carnegie was over in Europe. He hired another guy here, and the workers went on a strike. 7 workers were killed and 3 Pinkertons. They were like a private army. Had more guns than the U.S. Army at the time.
We read the signs and learned a little bit about the history of the Homestead Massacre. And we looked out over the river. There was a pretty good view. You could see another steel mill that used to be operational and a hot metal bridge, which we'll be crossing pretty soon after this.
Where do we go?
we managed to go 3 days without ever having to go down steps with our bikes. Until now.
Making down the steps.
Well, once we all made it down the stairs, we only had to ride a short distance around the fountain to mile marker 150. The end of the Great Allegheny Passage.
Made it to the point in Pittsburgh, to the fountain. That's it. This is the end of the trip right here. There's Heinz Field. That's it. Now that we are done with this whole ordeal, what do you have to say about this trip?
It was refreshing.
Refreshing. Uncle Dave, what do you have to say about this trip?
Doesn't get any better than this.
Alright.
Until I get the deep fried cheeseburger.
What's your opinion of the trip, Dad? How'd you like it?
Thumbs up. It was tough, but we made it. Some living off the land doesn't get any better.
Alright.
After we hung out at the fountain for a little bit, we started heading across this bridge. You ever seen Jack Reacher? This bridge played a role there. But we were on our way to Grill 36, have some deep fried cheeseburgers for lunch. We were meeting with some of our family that didn't go on the bike trip with us.
Yeah, like where's the bread?
Over lunch we told the rest of our families about the trip. And it was cool, you know, the 3-day transition from woods into suburbs and eventually into Pittsburgh. And you know how sometimes there was no one on the trail but us, and other times there were these big groups of people. And all the little differences between day 1 in Ohio PAL and day 3 in Pittsburgh. We really came a long way overall.